Fatigue is not always physical. It can be spiritual. So many people walk through life thinking they're just tired, blaming it on work, lack of sleep, stress, or maybe even age. But sometimes, what we're feeling has nothing to do with the body and everything to do with the soul. You wake up in the morning after a full night's sleep, and instead of feeling refreshed, you feel heavy. Your limbs move slower, your heart feels burdened, and there's this invisible weight pressing down on you. That's not something 8 hours of sleep can fix. That's not something a strong cup of coffee or a weekend getaway will cure, because the problem isn't in your muscles. It's deeper than that. It's in your spirit. We live in a world that glorifies hustle. Keep grinding, keep pushing, keep going. And while we move faster and do more, we often forget to check on the one thing that truly fuels us, our connection to our Creator. You can't ignore your soul and expect your body to thrive. You can't run on empty spiritually and expect peace mentally or physically. When the soul is deprived, when it's neglected, when it's burdened with the weight of unspoken pain, hidden sins, unanswered questions, or the absence of dehikar, it speaks up. And sometimes it speaks through the language of fatigue. There are people who pray 5 times a day, who fast regularly, who do everything they've been taught to do, and still they feel disconnected. Still, they feel worn down, because rituals without reflection become routine. And the heart, when it moves without presence, becomes numb. That numbness, that silent ache, it begins to manifest in our physical being. Allah, in His mercy, designed us in such a way that the body and soul are not separate. They are connected. So when one suffers, the other reveals it. Spiritual fatigue is a subtle yet powerful sign. It's your Lord calling you to stop, to pause, to reflect. He doesn't abandon you. He invites you. And sometimes that invitation comes in the form of exhaustion that no worldly fix can heal. Maybe you haven't opened the Quran in a while. Not truly. Maybe your sujud has become short. Your tears have dried. Your mind drifts during Salah. And you can't remember the last time your heart truly trembled at the mention of Allah's name. That's not just tiredness. That's a soul calling out for attention. A soul begging to be fed, to be seen, to be reconnected with the one who created it. If we continue to ignore it, we risk becoming numb to the very signs that were sent to awaken us. That heaviness, that weight, it's not always a burden. Sometimes it's a blessing. A divine alert system designed to bring you back to what matters. You don't need another vacation. You need a conversation with your Lord. You don't need more sleep. You need more sujud. You don't need more time in the world. You need more moments with the one beyond it. And when you finally start to reconnect, when you sit in silence with the Quran, when your forehead touches the ground and your heart trembles with sincerity, you'll begin to notice the weight lifting. Not all at once, but slowly, steadily, because when the soul is at peace, the body follows. So the next time you feel tired for no reason, don't just look to the physical. Look within. Because sometimes your fatigue is not from what you're carrying in your hands, but what you've been carrying in your heart, and that, my friend, is a sign worth paying attention to. Your soul speaks through your body. Listen closely. There are moments in life when you feel something is wrong, but you can't quite explain it. Your body is slow. Your mind feels foggy. And even though nothing major has happened, you feel like something's weighing you down. You go to bed on time, eat right, do all the things you've been told to do for your physical health, yet you still feel exhausted. That's not a coincidence. That's not just your body reacting to stress. That's your soul trying to tell you something. We've been trained to pay attention to physical symptoms, to look for external causes of internal problems. But what if the real source of our fatigue, our restlessness, our lack of motivation, is something far deeper? The soul doesn't speak in words. It speaks in feelings, in subtle shifts, in quiet discomforts. When your connection to Allah weakens, when your heart drifts away from remembrance, your soul begins to feel the emptiness. And because the soul is deeply connected to the body, that emptiness starts to affect how you feel physically. You might find yourself dragging through your days, unable to focus, constantly irritated and unsure why. It's not always anxiety, it's not always depression. Sometimes it's a spiritual silence echoing through your life, and in that silence, your soul is crying out. The problem is, most of us have forgotten how to listen. We silence that cry with distractions, scrolling through phones, chasing entertainment, filling our time with noise, when what we really need is stillness. What we really need is to be alone with our thoughts, to sit in the quiet and ask ourselves the real questions. When was the last time I felt truly connected to my Lord? When was the last time I cried in sujud? When was the last time I felt peace, not from the world, but from my worship? The body responds to spiritual distress in ways that are easy to ignore. You feel tired, you feel heavy, you lose motivation. It's easier to blame stress, to blame lack of sleep, to blame everything else, because looking inward requires honesty. It requires facing parts of yourself you may have neglected. But the beauty in this connection between soul and body is that Allah, in His mercy, gave us a way to know when something is wrong deep inside. He didn't leave us alone. He gave us signs, subtle, quiet, but powerful. If you learn to listen, really listen, you'll start to hear the voice of your soul again, not through words, but through how you feel when you're disconnected from your Creator, that unease you feel when you skip a prayer, that emptiness after a day filled with dunya but no dhikr, that heavy sigh you let out at night when you realize something's missing, even though everything around you seems fine. That's your soul. That's your fitra reminding you of who you are. You were not made for this world. You were made to remember the one who made you. And when you respond to that voice, when you start praying with presence, when you start turning off the noise, when you start giving your soul what it truly needs, you'll notice something incredible. The body begins to heal, the energy returns, the heaviness lifts, because when the soul is nourished, the body thrives. So don't ignore what your body is trying to tell you. It might just be echoing the cry of your soul. And that cry is not a weakness. It's an invitation back to peace. Doing the rituals without connection leads to spiritual burnout. It's a strange feeling, isn't it? You're praying every day. You're fasting when it's time. You're saying the words, making the motions, but something feels off. Something's missing. Deep down, you feel like you're just going through the motions, like your heart is no longer present in what your body is doing. That's not because you're a bad person. That's not because you failed. It's because somewhere along the way, the connection was lost, and what used to be devotion has slowly turned into routine. Islam is not just a set of checkboxes. It's not a formula of actions to be done on autopilot. It's a living, breathing relationship with your Creator. And like any relationship, it needs presence, attention, and sincerity. If you're praying with your lips, but your heart is 1,000 miles away, thinking about work, stress, or scrolling through your mental to-do list, that prayer might be valid in action, but it's empty in spirit. Over time, this emptiness builds. You start to feel tired, not just in your body, but in your soul. You start to wonder why you don't feel the sweetness you once felt in worship, why it's starting to feel like a chore instead of a gift. That's what spiritual burnout looks like. It's when you're doing everything right on the outside, but inside your soul is starving. You stand in prayer, but your heart doesn't move. You recite the Quran, but the words don't land. You fast during Ramadan, but it feels like hunger without meaning. And the worst part is, you might feel guilty for even thinking this way. You tell yourself, I'm praying, I'm trying, why do I still feel like this? The truth is, rituals are meant to connect you, not contain you. They are tools for transformation, not just traditions to maintain. When you pray, it's not supposed to be just an act of obedience. It's a conversation with your Lord. When you read the Quran, it's not just to finish a chapter, it's to feel the weight and the wisdom of His words. When you fast, it's not just about hunger, it's about awakening the soul by quieting the body. But if these acts are done without presence, they can lose their power. And when they lose their power, we start to feel lost, even if we're doing all the right things. This is why intention is everything. When your worship is rooted in love, gratitude, and awe, it becomes nourishment. When it's done just to avoid guilt or check off a list, it becomes another weight. And if you're not careful, that weight turns into resentment or exhaustion. The very things meant to heal you start to feel like they're hurting you. But it's not the worship that's the problem. It's the disconnection. So what do you do when you reach this point? You slow down, you pause, you go back to the basics, you talk to Allah honestly, you tell Him you feel lost, you tell Him your heart feels distant, and you ask Him to bring it back. Because that's what He wants. He doesn't want robotic worship. He wants real connection. And the beauty of this faith is that even your struggle to reconnect is an act of worship. The path back is never closed. But it begins with honesty, with recognizing that outward action without inward reflection leads to emptiness. And the moment you stop pretending, the moment you seek presence over perfection, that's when the heart begins to beat again. So never let your rituals become routine, because without the heart, even the most perfect actions lose their light. Allah uses fatigue as a divine signal to call you back. When the body begins to slow down, when the mind starts to feel cloudy, when your motivation disappears even though life seems to be going normally, that's not always a sign of weakness. It could be a sign from the one who knows you better than you know yourself. Fatigue doesn't always mean you're overworked. Sometimes it means your soul is undernourished. And in His infinite mercy, Allah lets that discomfort rise to the surface, not to punish you, but to wake you up. We live in a time where everything moves fast. There's little room for reflection. Every second is filled with noise, tasks, scrolling, distractions. The world teaches us that if we feel off, we need to take a break, go on vacation, binge a series, or treat ourselves to something temporary. But no matter how many things we try to fix the feeling, it always returns. Because when the soul is being neglected, the body begins to mirror its pain, and Allah, He knows exactly when and how to get our attention. That fatigue you feel is not random. That heaviness isn't just tiredness. It's a signal, a whisper from your Lord saying, "You've drifted too far. Come back to me." It's in the stillness that follows exhaustion. It's in the silence you hear when your heart is too tired to keep pretending everything's fine. Allah allows that spiritual fatigue to grow louder when you've gone too long without checking in with your soul. It's His way of bringing you closer, of turning you back toward Him before the distance becomes too great. He doesn't always call us through blessings. Sometimes He calls us through discomfort, because pain gets our attention. Pain humbles us. Pain removes the illusion that we can do everything on our own. And when we're exhausted beyond repair, when no worldly solution brings relief, that's when we finally look up. That's when we finally cry in sujood, not out of habit, but out of desperation. And that, right there, is the moment Allah was guiding you toward all along. You see, it's not that He left you, it's that you stopped listening, and so He allowed the fatigue, the burnout, the restlessness to build, not to break you, but to soften you, to remind you that your heart was created to be near Him, not distant, that your strength comes from Him, not from the world. And when you return, when you answer that silent call, when you begin to pray with presence, when your forehead touches the ground and your heart trembles, not because you have to, but because you need to, that's when the healing begins. You begin to see that the fatigue wasn't your enemy. It was a guide. It was a gift in disguise. It stripped away your distractions and brought you back to what matters. It made you pause, reflect, remember. And that remembrance, it revives the soul, it lightens the load, Not because life becomes easier, but because you remember who you're walking with. You remember who's in control. So the next time you feel drained for no reason, don't rush to fix it with the dunya. Sit with it, reflect on it. Let it be what it's meant to be, a divine signal, a sacred reminder, a calling from your Creator. Because sometimes the fatigue is not meant to stop you. It's meant to reroute you. And the moment you recognize it for what it truly is, you'll realize Allah never stopped calling. You just finally stopped to listen. Real strength comes from spiritual alignment, not worldly rest. We're taught to hustle, to push through, to sleep less, work more, and then reward ourselves with temporary relief. But no matter how much you sleep, no matter how many days off you take, no matter how much you try to relax, it never feels like enough. That's because the rest your body is craving isn't just physical. It's deeply spiritual, and no amount of worldly ease can replace the peace that comes from a heart in sync with its Creator. You see, strength isn't about how much you can carry on your shoulders. It's about where you're drawing your energy from. Some people appear strong on the outside, always moving, always achieving, always smiling. But inside they're breaking, their souls are dry, their hearts are tired, and the worst part is they don't know why. They've done everything the world told them would bring peace, but peace still feels far away. Because what they're really missing isn't another nap or another success. What they're missing is alignment with the one who gives true rest. Spiritual alignment means your heart, your mind, and your actions are pointed in the same direction, toward Allah. It means you're not just doing good deeds to tick a box, but because your heart is moved by love, gratitude, and awe for the one who created you. When that alignment is present, something shifts. Your salah becomes a refuge, not a task. Your dhikr becomes a source of calm, not just words on your tongue. Your soul starts to breathe again. And when your soul is breathing, your body follows. That's where real strength comes from. Not from caffeine. Not from motivational quotes. Not from more hours in the gym or more dollars in the bank. It comes from being spiritually rooted. When you're aligned with your Lord, you can handle pressure without breaking. You can carry the weight of responsibilities without collapsing under them, because you know you're not carrying them alone. You have someone to turn to, someone to cry to, someone who never grows tired, never abandons you, never leaves you empty. But when that alignment is lost, everything else starts to collapse. The same tasks that once felt light now feel impossible. The same routines that used to bring you joy start to drain you. That's not laziness. That's a misalignment of the soul. That's Allah reminding you that you were never meant to live disconnected from Him. That all your effort, all your striving, all your movement, it means nothing if it isn't rooted in remembrance, in faith, in purpose. It doesn't mean you stop working hard. It means you anchor your work in the right place. You begin your day with not just deadlines. You seek strength from prayer before performance. You understand that your energy, your patience, your endurance, it all comes from Allah. And when you live like that, the storms still come, but you're no longer shaken. The pressure builds, but you're no longer crushed, because your strength is no longer your own. It's from the one who is never weak. So if you've been feeling tired, disconnected, or overwhelmed, don't just take a break from the world. Reconnect with your Lord. Let your soul catch up with your body. Let your heart rest in sujud. That's where the real strength is. And when your heart is aligned, even the heaviest burdens become light. This exhaustion is not a punishment. It's a wake-up call. So many times, we misunderstand the struggles we go through. We think that if we're tired all the time, if we're emotionally drained, mentally scattered, spiritually numb, then something must be wrong with us. We assume it's a failure, a sign that we're not strong enough, not good enough, not doing enough. But what if that exhaustion isn't a sign of failure at all? What if it's a divine reminder from the one who sees what's really going on inside of you? Allah is never careless with His creation. He doesn't allow pain or fatigue or heaviness to enter your life without a purpose. Sometimes he sends blessings to draw you close, and other times he sends discomfort to wake you up. Because let's be honest, when things are easy, when life is smooth, we tend to drift. We move through the days without pausing. We perform our prayers, but we're not present. We go through the motions of faith, but the fire inside feels dim. And so, when our hearts start to go silent, Allah shakes the soul. He brings discomfort not to punish, but to remind you that something needs attention. This kind of exhaustion, the one that no amount of sleep can fix, isn't solved by rest alone. It's solved by returning to Allah, returning to sincerity, returning to purpose. You might be praying, but are you feeling it? You might be reading Quran, but is your heart listening? You might be fasting, but is your intention rooted in love or just habit? These are the questions that exhaustion tries to raise. It's the body's way of saying, something is out of alignment, and it's your soul's way of saying, I miss him. When we ignore these signals, they don't go away. They grow louder, the fatigue becomes deeper, the days feel heavier, and the world starts to lose its color. But the moment you recognize that this isn't a curse, it's a calling, that's the moment things begin to shift. Allah never stops inviting you back. Even in your most exhausted state, even when you feel too tired to make dua, even when your heart feels silent, his door is still open. He's not waiting for perfect words. He's waiting for your sincerity. And sometimes the strongest dua you can make is just a whisper, Ya Allah, I'm tired. That alone is enough to begin the journey back. Because acknowledging the exhaustion is the first step to healing it. Once you understand that this struggle is a message, not a punishment, you can begin to respond, not with guilt, but with grace. You start seeking him not just in moments of strength, but in moments of weakness too. And that's where real transformation begins. Your exhaustion isn't proof that Allah is distant. It's proof that he's close enough to stir your soul. It's his way of pulling you away from distractions, away from illusions, and back into reality. The reality that you were never meant to carry this life on your own. You were created to lean on him, to draw strength from him, to find peace in him. So don't run from the exhaustion, sit with it, listen to it. Let it guide you back to the place where peace is found in sujood, in remembrance, in presence. Because sometimes the most sacred invitation comes wrapped in fatigue, and the moment you answer that call, the weight begins to lift.